Assalamualaikum everyone. Today we are going to start the new topic, and it is the most important topic of this course as well, which is level of service and capacity analysis. Okay, so this topic is in the book in chapter 7 and 28. Chapter 7 is for general information, general terms and definitions, and chapter 28 contains the analysis for uninterrupted flow facilities. Now, by the end of this chapter, we have covered volume studies. So the only thing which is left from the field for your term project, term project, is the collection of volume. Then the remaining is analysis only, which most of you would know after the end of these slides. Okay. So if you want to collect volume right now, you can go to segment or your intersection, collect volume in the peak hour for 15 minutes interval, so that you can calculate peak hour factor. Okay, so you will collect like 4 15 minutes flows to have one peak hour volume, and you have to calculate peak hour factor as well. Volume must be collected for passenger cars and heavy vehicles separately. Volume must be collected for passenger cars and heavy vehicles separately. Okay. Volume must be collected for all directions. Volume must be collected for all directions. So if you are a group of 2 or 3 students, you are doing 2 directions. So you have 2 directions, right? You are doing a segment, you have 2 directions. If you are doing an intersection, if you are a group of 4 or 5 members, you are doing an intersection. So you will have 4 sides, and each side can have 3 or 4 directions, meaning right turning, straight, left turning, and U-turn. Okay, so you need to collect all of them. You will have 3 directions. Sorry, you have a T intersection, you will have 3 directions, and each direction will have or may have right turning, straight, and left turning, and U-turn. Some of them will not be there because of 3-leg intersection, but whatever directions you have to collect it. Okay, so collect peak hour volume with 15 minutes interval, heavy vehicles and passenger cars separately, and for all directions. Okay, this is the field work, and then you will see in this chapter, in these slides, what analysis you have to do. Okay, so let us start. We have already gone through what do we mean by uninterrupted flow facilities, the facilities which do not have any interruptions, right? And these interruptions may include signals, stop signs, yield signs, roundabouts, speed humps, and so on. Now these interruptions, practically these interruptions will be there on most of the highways. So maybe 99.9% of the highways, 99.9% of the highways may be called interrupted flow facilities. Okay, but they have put a limit on the distance between the interruptions so that you can have more uninterrupted flow facilities. And this interruption and this limit is not just on the basis of their mood or choice. It has a reason. So first of all, if the distance between the interruptions is more than 2 miles, if the distance between the interruption is more than 2 miles, then the facility is called uninterrupted flow facility. So you have one signal, the next one is after 2 miles, or let's say 3 miles. Then the segment between the two signals will be called as uninterrupted flow segment or uninterrupted flow facility. Why? Because if the spacing between the interruptions is more than 2 miles, then the drivers, when they are driving from one interruption to the next one, they do not feel the effect of the next interruption until they are very close to it. So you have just passed one signal, and now you will accelerate because you know there is so much distance ahead of you till you reach the next signal or the next interruption. So till that time you will be driving like you do not have any interruptions, obviously. So you can attain the highest speed which is allowed by the road or the traffic, and without the feel of the interruption, without the consideration or the concern for the interruption. Okay, so this is why this 2 miles limit has been set. Now there are 3 types of uninterrupted flow facilities: freeways, multi-lane highways, and 2-lane highways. Okay, freeways are pure uninterrupted flow facilities. So these are the facilities which do not have interruptions at all. Actually, Okay, real in real sense. Then multi-lane highways are those facilities. They are basically surface. They are called as surface multi-lane highways. Why surface? Because they are on the ground level. Surface means on the ground level. Okay, so they do not have bridges and tunnels. Why? Because if they had bridges and tunnels, then there would be no interruptions. Okay, if you provide a bridge, that means you are avoiding an intersection, right? So if the intersections are avoided, then we will call it freeways. If the all intersections are avoided, then we call it freeways. Okay, so multi-lane highways are surface multi-lane highways, and they are generally 4 or 6 lanes. And in these highways, the interruption is more than 2 miles apart. Okay, so they are fulfilling the the practical definition which we have just discussed. And then we have rural 2-lane highways. 2-lane means 1 lane in each direction. 2-lane means 1 lane in each direction. Okay. Now keep it in mind. Whenever I say 4 lanes, 6 lanes, 2 lanes, or whatever, this is indicating lanes in both directions. This is indicating lanes in both directions. So 4 lane means 2 lanes in each direction. 6 lane means 3 lanes in each direction. 2 lane means 1 lane in each direction. Okay. Now why they are using the word rural here? Why not just any 2-lane highways? So first of all, rural 2-lane highways will be uninterrupted as per this definition, that the interruptions are more than 2 miles apart. Interruptions are more than 2 miles apart. Okay. Now why rural? Why not just 2-lane highways? Because in urban areas, traffic is so high that 2-lane highways will not be uninterrupted. 2-lane highways will be mainly used for local streets. Okay, and those streets, then you cannot make it uninterrupted. Local streets are not uninterrupted, right? They have like intersections and turnings after every few hundred meters, right? So let alone 2 miles. In rural areas, the traffic is low, there's no population around the highway, so even 2-lane highways can be uninterrupted. Okay, this is the point here. In rural areas, the traffic is low and the population density is low, so even 2-lane highways can be uninterrupted. But in urban areas, 2-lane highways will only suffice for local streets, and then they will not be uninterrupted flow facilities. Okay, the procedure which we are going to discuss in this chapter is given from Highway Capacity Manual. So Highway Capacity Manual is a standard for capacity and level of service. It is developed in USA by Transportation Research Board, and this research board works under National Academy of Engineering. Okay, but they have done a lot of research. It's not like they have just saw what are their conditions and then they came up with a couple of figures and tables. They have done a comprehensive work. So the first, you can see, first manual published in 1950, the last one 2016. See how continuously they are making improvements. Okay, so obviously you are working on something for so long, it cannot be for one country, right? In 1994 they developed a software as well, highway capacity software, which they said that we can use it with the manual. So whatever calculations were required by the manual, the software was programmed to do all these calculations. The software was developed by the Transportation Center of University of Florida, and from 1994 onwards, whenever they published a new manual, they provided a new software as well. I don't have the latest software, okay, but we don't have to worry about the software anymore. Why? Because the softwares which are developed by other companies, for example, you can search for Vism, Synchro, Sidra, and there are other names as well, Paramix, and so on and so forth. These softwares have inbuilt highway capacity analysis in them. So now we don't have to buy a separate software for highway capacity analysis. We have these softwares which are used for traffic engineering tasks, and these softwares include the highway capacity analysis as well. Okay, so if you have any of these softwares, you can work with them. So for example, I have Sidra, Synchro, okay, and Vism, they provide a student version free. Okay, so you can use any of these softwares for doing highway capacity analysis without any problems. Okay, now in your book, they have done a section by section analysis of the changes from 1950 manual to 2016. Obviously, we will not go through all of them. Okay, I just want to emphasize on why they published 2016 manual. Okay, and it was very with a very short interval from the previous manual. Previous manual was 2010. So usually they do not publish new manuals after every 5-6 years, right? So they have a program which is known as Strategic Highway Research Program, SHARP. Okay, and some websites they call it SHRP as well, but again I will still call it SHARP. So they have a Strategic Highway Research Program, and they have a lot of funding on this under this program, and they have done a lot of research under this program. So after 2010, they started to get a lot of results from this program, and they thought, okay, why not, include these results in the highway capacity manual. So earlier they thought, okay, we will add 1 or 2 chapters, or we'll update some chapters in the highway capacity manual. But later on, the results were so detailed and so many that they thought, okay, one only update will not do it. We need to develop another manual. Okay. So they come up with a 2016 manual. In 2016 manual, this is what I thought at the start as well, that it will be just a change of diagrams and tables and that's it. But later on, I found quite late actually that it is a lot more than that. So the analysis which we will discuss, if you compare it, if you see the lecture the previous semesters, my lectures from the previous semesters for highway capacity, you see the analysis completely changed. Okay, but that is the analysis of the existing things. The things which are already in the highway capacity manual, they change the procedure, they change the figures, equations, whatever, but the concept was there. Then they added some new things, for example, travel time reliability. Okay, if you go on Google and search with my name and travel time, you will find a paper. So what is travel time reliability? So you say I go from point A to point B daily, it takes me 10 minutes. But does it mean that it always takes you 10 minutes? No. Sometimes it takes you 11 minutes, sometimes 12 minutes, sometimes 8 minutes. Okay, so how reliable, how confident you are, or how confident you can be about your travel time. Okay, so these things were obviously not part of 2010 manual. Then managed lanes. Okay, so some lanes can be dedicated to specific vehicles, that these lanes are for buses, or these lanes are for cars with 4 or 5 people. Okay, I think I've discussed the concept of high occupancy lanes. But anyways, these are known as managed lanes. For these lanes, you can change the speed and sometimes change the direction as well. So these are managed lanes, and these were not included in 2010 manual. And then assessment of active traffic management strategies. What do we mean by active traffic management? Managing traffic on real-time basis. So something happened, an accident happened, and a lane is blocked. And you got the information, and you know, if I don't do anything right now, after half an hour, this whole highway will be congested, jam-packed. So you do something right now, advise the drivers or change the speed limit or whatever you want to do. You do something so that the thing does not escalate into worse conditions in some time. Okay, so this is what we call as active traffic management strategies, taking actions on the basis of real-time information from traffic. Okay, so now we have so much technology, detectors, sensors, cameras, we can do that. We can attain real-time information and then we can act according to it. So this is known as active traffic management strategies, and this was not included in 2010 manual. Okay, so these are the new things, completely new. These are completely new things which were not even mentioned in the 2010 manual. Okay. Now let us define capacity. As I said, chapter 7 is about general discussion. So the definition of capacity is again general. Okay, it will apply to many types of facilities. So capacity, we already know a basic definition. Capacity is the maximum flow rate that can pass a lane or a roadway, right? Now, they are giving a more comprehensive definition. So maximum hourly rate, meaning flow rate, at which person or vehicles can be reasonably expected to traverse a point or a uniform section for a lane or roadway during given time period under prevailing conditions, and they include environmental, traffic, and control conditions. Now you can see some words are highlighted or bold here. Okay, why are they? First of all, maximum hourly rate. We have already discussed that capacity is calculated in terms of flow rate, not volume, flow rate. And what is flow rate? The maximum flow within an hour, and then you convert it to the hourly rate, right? So this is flow rate. So capacity is in terms of flow rate. Now capacity can be in terms of number of persons or vehicles. Flow rate of persons or vehicles. We have already discussed about vehicles, right? For roads, we use vehicles. Why they have included persons here? Because there can be some facilities in which vehicles are not your concern. For example, if you're designing a public transport system or a bicycle lane or a pedestrian crossing, then obviously vehicles are not your concern. Your concern is to facilitate maximum number of persons. So for those facilities, the capacity will be calculated as flow rate of persons. Okay. Second concept is reasonable expectancy, reasonably expected. So according to them, whatever capacity you will calculate, and obviously they have found it through studies. So they are saying whatever capacity you calculate for a road, that is the most repeated value you can see, you can have. Okay, it doesn't mean that it will happen always. So for example, you calculate capacity 2000 vehicles per hour per lane. According to you, or according to the highway capacity manual procedure, the capacity of this lane is 2000 vehicles per hour per lane. Okay, now this means what? In almost all the cases, almost all the time, whenever you go beyond 2000, you will have traffic jam, right? After capacity, what we will have? Traffic jam, right? We have already discussed, we will have queue and traffic jam and so on. So most repetitively, traffic jam will happen after this value, but it is not always. Sometimes you may have more heavy vehicles and traffic jam may happen even before you reach 2000. Okay, or sometimes you can have the other way around, that the weather conditions and the road conditions are so good that you may go beyond 2000 and you still don't have a traffic jam. Slightly, obviously, it doesn't mean that you will go up to 4000, right? It means like you will have 20, 10, 20, 50 vehicles more and still the flow is maintained. It can happen. Okay, so capacity is affected by so many things that you cannot say for sure that whenever I reach this value, I will have a traffic jam after that, and vice versa. Okay, but it is reasonably expected, and since there are so many things affecting the capacity, that we cannot be sure that you cannot calculate the actual capacity which you can apply to all cases. Okay, so you have to rely on this reasonably expected value. Okay, but okay, so we said we will eventually be using the capacity which will calculate it. Okay, but keep in mind there is a chance that this capacity may not be attained all the time. Okay, then this capacity is for a point or a uniform section. Now this is again something we discussed in lecture 3 slides, that capacity is in terms of flow or flow rate, and flow is measured from a point. When you count vehicles, you count it over a point. How many vehicles across this point? So capacity is by nature for a point, but the same capacity can be considered for the remaining portion of the highway if it's a uniform section. If you remember, we discussed that flow rate equals to S into D, speed into density, and speed and density are both taken for a section. So for the entire section, the capacity can be the same if the section is uniform, meaning it has the same characteristics, lane width, shoulder width, number of lanes, and everything is the same, then the capacity will also remain the same. Otherwise, it will be for a point where you collected the rate. Okay. Then the next thing is prevailing condition. Prevailing means existing. Prevailing means existing. Okay, like I am not giving you the dictionary definition. I'm just trying to make things easier. Okay, the sense in which we will use this word in this topic. Prevailing means existing condition. Existing conditions of the road and environment and traffic and control. Meaning what? Roadway conditions include gradient, number of lanes, lane width, shoulder, median. These are all conditions related to the roadway. Then we have environmental conditions, meaning weather, light, day or night time, and so on. Okay, this thing again was not part of 2010 manual. So the remaining definition was the same, but this word was not there. Okay, so I added this word from the latest manual. The remaining condition, the remaining definition is the same. Traffic conditions include what? Number of vehicles, volume or flow rate, peak hour factor, percentage of heavy vehicles. These are all part of traffic conditions. And then control conditions mean control devices. Control devices. Again, this is the general definition. So control devices for some facilities. Obviously, in these, the analysis we will discuss is for uninterrupted flow facilities, but the capacity can be for any facility. That's why we have persons as well, right? Okay. So this is the general definition. So control conditions may include having signals, roundabouts, lane markings, speed humps. These are the control conditions. Okay. For uninterrupted flow facilities, these are the capacities under ideal conditions. They are calling it the base capacity. Base capacity. Okay. So base capacity basically means capacity under ideal conditions, and what are ideal conditions I will tell you later on. Okay. So we have freeways, multi-lane highways, and rural two-lane highways. For two-lane highways, for all two-lane highways, the capacity, the base capacity is 3,200 passenger cars per hour for both directions, and out of which 1,700 for one direction. So the other direction will have 1,500. Okay, total capacity for both direction will be 3,200, out of which 1,700 in one direction and 1,500 in the other direction. Now you would say, why don't both directions have 1,700? It's one lane, right? Because when one lane reaches its maximum capacity, 1,700, the other lane starts getting affected by it. You may know when you are on two-lane highway, if one lane is completely packed, then the other lane will start to have the effect in terms of, the cars will be very close to them, first of all. Secondly, some cars may come to the other lane in order to overtake the cars in the packed lane. In order to overtake the car in the lane we have the capacity. Okay, so because of this, the other direction cannot reach the same capacity as the first lane. Okay, so one lane can reach 1,700, the other lane will not reach 1,700 because it's affected by the other direction. Okay, so one direction can only have 1,500. If one direction has reached 1,700, the other one can only reach up to 1,500. Okay. Then capacities for freeways and multi-highways depend upon the free flow speed. We've already discussed free flow speed, the speed when the traffic is very low. Okay, almost zero. So freeway speeds range from 75 to 55. Okay, 75 is a very high value. They are saying even if you have higher than 75, it's the same capacity. So 75 means I think more than 120 kilometers per hour, which is again very high speed for Bahrain and for most of the countries in the world. Okay, so the highest speeds are given to freeways. And obviously then, since freeways do not have any interruptions, so their speeds should not be very low. So you see below 55, there's nothing. Okay, so freeway speeds are normally maintained at 55 miles per hour or higher because they are made for it, they are designed for it. Without any interruptions, driver are expecting high speed, or you can maintain high speed. For multi-lane highways, since they have interruptions, although the interruptions are far from each other, but they are there, so you cannot maintain the same speed as a freeway. So it starts from 70, goes up to 45 as well. So even low as 45 can be possible. You can see the speed, the capacities are changing according to the free flow speed. Now you would say that why free flow speed is affecting the capacity? Because free flow speed indicates what? Free flow speed basically indicates the complete design of the road. The complete design of the road. If you look at from highway engineering, starting from highway engineering till today, whatever we have discussed in the design of the road, that was all dependent upon the speed. Taking side distance, take radius of the curve, take length of vertical curve, take gradients, Okay, whatever you can think of. Okay, you can go through all the topics in which we discuss some aspect of design for highways. You will see the speed was the basic input. Okay, so everything was dependent upon speed. So we are not saying this free flow speed will have this capacity. We are saying the design which is made using this speed will have a capacity of this. So this free flow speed is basically indicating the whole set of design standards. Okay, so this is why capacity, obviously its capacity is dependent upon design of the road. So the free flow speed is an indicator of the complete design of the road. Okay. Then we have the concept of level of service. LOS means level of service. Up till now, we know two levels for highway conditions. We know free flow and we know capacity. Okay, and then we have traffic jam as well, and obviously we don't want traffic jam. What about capacity? Do you want your highway to operate at capacity? The answer is no. Why? Because capacity means fully saturated. In the delay studies, we use the word saturated, undersaturated, and so on. So when something is saturated, that means there are no gaps now. Okay, the movement is very limited. So if I say this bottle is 500 milliliters and now it is fully saturated, that means now there's nothing that can go inside this bottle. Okay, there's no gap inside this bottle even for air. Same thing for the highway as well. When the highway reaches capacity, that means now there's no gap and there's no margin for any additional vehicles. There's no space for any additional vehicles. If you want to change your lane, if you want to increase your speed, if you want to change your direction, you have to disturb everybody else because there are no gap for you. You want to change your lane, the lane is completely full. Okay, so you have to disturb the other drivers to to make sure that you can do the required action. So capacity conditions are not good for drivers. Okay, they will feel discomfort, stressed because they are completely surrounded by cars and they cannot move according to their own will and choice. Yeah. The other condition is so capacity cannot be taken for design. You should not design a highway that will operate under capacity conditions for many hours in the day. Then you have the free flow conditions. Free flow means almost zero volume. Can you design a road for zero volume? No. Then why are you designing? If it is for zero volume, then what is the need for designing? What is the need for the road? You're doing it for jinns and ghosts, they don't need roads. Okay, so we need to define some intermediate levels between free flow and capacity, so for which we can design. So the levels of service are these intermediate levels. The intermediate levels between starting from free flow till the capacity and beyond. Okay, so this concept was introduced in 1965, and this is basically describing the quality of operations on the highway. The quality of operations on the highway. The quality of operations on the highway is described in terms of levels of service. Okay, and they have a letter grade from A to F. A to F. Sounds familiar, right? A to F. And with that, you must know that good condition is good, right? A is good, F is not good, right? So let us define level of service. So this is the official definition of level of service. It denotes the operating conditions for a lane or roadway under given volume. Okay, what are the operating conditions for the drivers in a lane or a roadway under given volume? Okay, so this quality measure describes our operational conditions for traffic stream, and they include all these factors. When we say operational conditions means what? Operational conditions means speed, travel time, freedom to maneuver, traffic interruptions, comfort and convenience. Okay, all these things are part of operational conditions, or they can improve or degrade the operational conditions. For example, speed and travel time. High speed, less travel time, right? High speed, less travel time means what? Operational conditions are good. So higher speed, operational conditions are getting better. Okay, and so on. Freedom to maneuver. Maneuver means we have used this term for the for side distance as well. Maneuver means taking any action as a driver. So changing the lane, changing the speed, changing the direction, and so on and so forth. So if you have more freedom to do these things, more flexibility, more gaps in traffic, that means operational conditions are good and vice versa. Traffic interruptions, again, the point is these definitions are general. So they will be, or they can be applied to interrupted flow facilities as well. So traffic interruptions is a part of it. Okay. In our case, when we will apply this definition to uninterrupted flow facilities, this word will not affect because the facility is uninterrupted. But generally, for general purpose, this definition will apply to interrupted flow facilities as well. So more interruptions means what? Low conditions, right? Low operational conditions or poor operational conditions, right? And less traffic interruptions means better operational conditions. Comfort means what? How comfortable you are feeling while you are driving. So as I said, if there are no gaps for you, vehicles around you, and you have to follow the other drivers and you have to wait for the other drivers to go, you will feel discomfort, you will feel more stressed. Okay. If there are more gaps, you cannot see the other vehicle for so much distance, you will feel more comfortable, less stressed, and more relaxed. Okay. Then convenience means how conveniently you can drive. Okay, so when the traffic density is very high, the operation conditions are not good, you are following the other drivers, you have to stop and start, you have to keep on moving the steering wheel, you have to keep on pressing the brake and the accelerator and so on and so forth. So the driving task becomes more cumbersome, more hectic, okay, more tiring. Okay, you have to be more attentive and more reactive and so on. Okay, so it will be less convenient if the operation conditions are not good. So there are 6 levels of service. You can see 5 of them here because the sixth one is F, and F is traffic jam. F is traffic jam. So you can see the remaining 5 here. So LOSE means capacity operations. So level of service E depends upon shows that the facility has reached its capacity. So when you reach the capacity, it is termed as level of service E. Okay. Then D is the level of service where you can maintain sustainable flows. Okay, so the flow has not reached capacity. So at capacity, the flow is there. Okay, the flow is there, but you are following the other drivers, so the flow is not so smooth. Okay, but in level of service D, the flow is smooth. Okay, and so this is what we mean by sustainable, without any stoppage, without any breakage. Okay, without any break, without any stoppage, it is moving constantly. So the maximum constant flow you can maintain on the highway as level of service D. Then level of service C and B are termed as practical capacities for urban and rural facilities, respectively. Now, practical capacity means what? So they have given a concept that practical capacity is the maximum number of vehicles that can pass a segment during 1 hour, while the traffic density is optimum or not so high. Okay. Now, what they are saying is when the traffic density becomes high, when the traffic density becomes so high, you start to cause delay to the other drivers. In that case, the driver will start to feel the delay and they will feel that, okay, there is already traffic jam. Getting my point? So until level of service C, you don't start to feel the effect of other vehicles. This is what they are saying. The other vehicles have so much gap, the density is low, so there's so much gap between you and the other vehicle that you feel that you are driving on your own. But level of service D, although it's not capacity, you are still moving at D and E as well, but now you will start to feel the delay because of other drivers. You start to feel the delay because of other drivers. Okay, so practical capacity is the maximum flow you can have without getting affected by other drivers. Okay, and it will only happen when the traffic density is not so high, because when it becomes so high, then you will start to feel the delay because of other drivers. Okay, and in some cases, the delay becomes unreasonably high. Then we have level of service A, which is the highest, the best operating conditions that you can have on the highway, and the users are expecting this. The users are expecting level of service A basically. When we drive on the highway, we are expecting or we are hoping that we will get level of service A, the best, the I can drive on the speed limit. I will not be bothered about other vehicles when I want to change my lane and so on. Okay, so this is what we are expecting and what we are hoping for. Okay, obviously we don't get that. Okay, now you see the service measures here. What is a service measure? Service measure is the data or the parameter which you require to calculate level of service. The data or the parameter which you require to calculate level of service is known as its service measure. Okay, so service measures will depend upon what type of facility you have. So first of all, we have interrupted flow facilities. Uninterrupted flow facilities, we already know about them. Okay, and then we have other road users, which are transit users, meaning public transport users, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Okay, so there are three main categories of facilities discussed for level of service analysis: interrupted, uninterrupted, and other road users, including transit, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Okay, then within each, then you have subtypes. So interrupted can be urban streets which do not come under the uninterrupted flow definition. See, the definition was the spacing between the interruptions more than 2 miles. So any street which does not have spacing more than 2 miles will come under urban streets. And to calculate the level of service for urban streets, you need average travel speed on that segment. Okay. Then for signalized intersections, for two-way stop, all-way stop, or roundabouts or ramps, the level of service is calculated on the basis of control delay. And we have already discussed the concept of control delay in the delay studies, right? Then you come to two-lane highways, multi-lane highways, freeways. Okay, for two-lane highways, you need percentage time spent following and average travel speed. Percentage time spent following, we have not discussed it, and we are not going to discuss it because we will not go through the procedure for two-lane highways. Okay, multi-lane highways, freeways, we need density. For multi-lane highways and freeways, we need density, and we already know what is density. For other road users, transit, they have a different manual for transit capacities and level of service. Okay, and obviously we are not going to go through them. For pedestrians and bicyclists, they use perception index. So they ask the people, how do you feel about this facility? How do you feel about this facility? So it's like a survey. Pedestrians and bicyclists, you will ask them, how do you feel about the facility? And they will say, okay, we feel the level of service is A, B, whatever. Okay. Then we have the concept of service flow rate. What is service flow rate? Service flow rate is the maximum flow rate at which a specific level of service can be maintained under prevailing conditions. Maximum flow rate at which you are expected to maintain a specific level of service under prevailing conditions. Okay, it is also known as a capacity of a specified level of service. Capacity of a specified level of service. For example, if you say a service flow rate for level of service A for this highway under the prevailing conditions is, let's say, 1000 vehicles per hour per lane. So till the time flow is up to 1000 vehicles per hour per lane, the level of service on that highway will be termed as A. When you cross level of service, when you cross 1000, then the level of service will not remain A. It will be something higher. Okay, so whenever you have crossed the service flow rate for A, the level of service is changed. Okay, so this is the service flow rate, is the flow rate after which the level of service changes. So you will have a service flow rate for A and B and C and D and E. Okay, and after E, as I said, it's F, queue formation and traffic jam and so on. Okay, then there is no end to it. The service flow rate at E is the capacity of the highway, because we said level of service E denotes what? Capacity conditions. Okay, so service flow rate at E is the actual capacity of the highway. Okay, so after capacity you will have F. Makes sense, right? After capacity, when you go from E to F, so when you have exceeded service flow rate for E, you will reach condition or level of service F, which means traffic jam. So that's why service flow rate E will become or is the capacity of the highway. Now, one more thing which you can see from here. So when I cross service flow rate of D, I enter level of service E, right? When I cross SFD, the service flow rate for D, I enter into level of service E. Okay, so level of service E has a minimum as well as a maximum value, right? Maximum is service flow rate of E, and the minimum is service flow rate of D. So whenever you have crossed D, you are in level of service E. So each level of service has a range. Each level of service has a range. Again, something unique to the concept of level of service. There is not about only one value. You can maintain the same level of service within a range. Okay, so level of service B has a range, which is anything above SFA till SFB. The SFA is 1000, then from 1001 to SFB. If SFB is 1200, let's say, so from 1001 to 1200, you have level of service B. So every level of service has a range of flow rate in which it will maintain itself. Okay, so level of service doesn't change with each vehicle. This is what I want to explain here. Wanted to highlight. So you can convert service flow rate into service volume by multiplying it with peak hour factor. And this is no new equation. We already know, if you go back, peak hour factor equaled volume upon flow rate. Peak hour factor equals volume upon flow rate. If you look at the equation for peak hour factor, it was volume upon flow rate. Okay, so if you multiply, so then volume equals flow rate into peak hour factor. If peak hour factor is volume upon flow rate, then volume equals flow rate into peak hour factor. Okay, so if you have flow rate, you multiply with peak hour factor, you get volume. If you multiply with service flow rate, you will get service volume. If you multiply with service flow rate, you will get service volume. Okay, so if you know service flow rate, you can calculate service volume as well. Yes, Ali, good. You should have a point of view. Grade F. So what? Every country in the world has so many highways that have a grade of F. So what? Until you become the Minister of Transportation in Bahrain, live with it. Okay? Come to Karachi. I'll show you. Bahrain is like a heaven. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Now let us define the facilities. So we will discuss the analysis of basic freeways and multi-lane highways in this chapter. Now we are moving to chapter 28 now. So we'll discuss basic freeways and multi-lane highways in this chapter, and why we are discussing them together, because their procedure is same. For both of them, you need density to find out level of service, and the procedure to find out density is same for freeways and multi-lane highways. Okay, so as I said, freeways are pure uninterrupted flow facilities, so they do not have any interruption. Okay, so any entry and exit from the highway is made from a ramp, and ramp is not considered as an interruption. Ramp is not considered as an interruption. Why? Because for a ramp, if you are on the freeway, somebody is coming from a ramp or going onto a ramp, he will be interrupted because of you, not the other way around. Freeway drivers are not interrupted by ramps. Ramp drivers are interrupted by freeway drivers. They have to be stopped. They have to stop, they have to slow down. Freeway drivers do not stop or slow down for people coming from the ramps. They do not have to. By law, officially, they don't have to. Obviously, you have some mad drivers who are, coming on the highway 120 kilometers per hour. What you can do for them? Okay, but officially, generally, ramps are not considered as interruptions. So freeways only have ramps. They do not have any intersections. No added intersections. Signalized or unsignalized. No access to any garages or driveways. No parking on the side of the road. Okay, so freeways have all these properties. Okay, and when you achieve all of them, we call it full control of access. Access means entry. So entry is controlled for the drivers on the freeway. It's fully controlled. Okay, full control of access. So freeway is classified or given in terms of total number of lanes. Again, both directions, as I said earlier, So if I say it's a 6-lane freeway, that means 3 lanes in each direction. Okay, so I will always tell you the number of lanes in both directions. Then we have multi-lane highways, uninterrupted, because signal spacing are more than 2 miles. Multi-lane highways are given with number of lanes and median. Number of lanes for both directions and median. If they have median, then they will be called as divided. If they don't have a median, they will be called undivided. So the highways which you see in these pictures are divided, both of them. Both of them are divided. You can see the median in both of them. Okay. I think I forgot to add the picture for the undivided. Okay, sorry for that. But if you come to near the campus, the street in front of Pakistani school, you come out of the parking after you come out from the parking which is behind building 15 or beside building 15, you come out from that gate, you have the roundabout. From that roundabout, if you take the left one or if you go straight, you will see the streets are undivided. They are without medians. Okay, so but obviously they are not uninterrupted. They are not multi-lane highways. Okay. So why didn't we mention median with the freeway? Freeways always have a median. You cannot have a freeway without median. You cannot have a freeway without median. Okay. And we will discuss the analysis starting from tomorrow, inshallah. So apart from your Ali said, thanks for sharing your point of view. If anybody has a question, you can ask me. I'm going for the attendance right now. Okay, Dua Rabi, Amna Muhammad, Muhammad Usama, Amal Abdullah. If you see your name, raise your hand. Usama, Amna, and Dua. Okay, Amal Abdullah, Muhammad Noman. Okay, Ali is here. And Hakima Ali. Hakima and Noman. Zahra Sayyid, Fawaz Adil, Abdullah Jaliluddin, Abdul Rahman Ibrahim. Zahra Sayyid, Abdullah, Fawaz Adil, Nuju Salah, Nadine Hussam, Zahra Riyad, Abu Bakr Ghani. Nuju, Nadine, Zahra, Abu Bakr Ghani. Okay. If I have marked your attendance, you can leave or lower your hand. Zainab Ali Ahmad, Bulwa Ibrahim, Mariam Abdul Amir, Majd Bashar. And Mariam. Majd Bashar, Asil Hassan, Ali Mustafa. Asil. Hamad Khalid, Abdullah Husamuddin, Latifa Ahmad, Fatma Abdali. Abdullah. Zainab Abdullah, Zainab Abdari, Zainab Abdul Al, Ala Salman, Isra Abdul Karim. Abdul Isra. Ali Abdul Razak and Ali Makki. Ali Abdul Razak and Ali Makki. Not here. Okay, I'm going to section 1 now. Section 1. Yes, section 1. Sara, Khalid Qasim. Sara. Khalid Qasim. Dana Yasir, Abrar, Huda, Dana Isa. Huda, Abrar, Dana Yasir, Dana Isa. Okay, done. Adi Abdul Razak. I think I marked you. I didn't mark you. Adi. Who else? Anybody else from any section? So Zainab and
Yes,
Adi Abdul
sir.
Razak.
I'm Hajar from section 1.
Hajar. Okay. So others are from section 2, right? Ali Abdul Razak, Zainab. Okay, done, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.